Hey everyone, welcome back to the Let's Talk podcast, and we're diving back into the James Bond movies with David today. So we'll be talking about Diamonds Are Forever, which came out in 1971 and brings back Sean Connery in the lead role of James Bond, and is again, this time directed by Guy Hamilton, right David?
Yeah, that's right. Guy Hamilton's back. It's like they're getting the band back together. I think obviously Connery's back.
Yep.
And Shirley Bassey's back.
And bringing back, he directed, I believe, Goldfinger, right? He was the director of that.
Yes, Guy Hamilton directed Goldfinger. I'm trying to remember, did he direct any of the other Bond movies up till now? I'm not 100% sure.
I think this was his second one, if I'm correct. I believe that he only did these two, which is ironic because these are the two that took place in America, the first two. So it's weird that he kind of directed the American Bond movies.
I think what they were going for, they were trying to get it back to on track as the Goldfinger, that type of flavour and that kind of feel. And to be honest with you, when it first comes on, it does feel like that. It's like, you know, we're back to familiar territory.
I agree. We're like kind of back into the world that it did feel very much like Goldfinger. The cinematography did feel like the Connery Bonds. It kind of felt like, honestly, to me, a little bit of a step down from On Her Majesty's Secret Service from like a filmmaking standpoint.
Yes, we mentioned last week, I think, as you said about On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it's a wee bit more grounded, a wee bit more, you'd say it was a filmic or cinematic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas this is a wee bit more glossier, a wee bit more glitzier.
Yeah, it just got more of like that Connery feel, like it just feels a little bit more straightforward. It doesn't feel like it's going for exactly like what we would expect from James Bond, more or less, which is, I guess they kind of felt like at the time when I was reading about it, like On Her Majesty's Secret Service was like a risk that kind of ended up failing in a lot of people's eyes. So I guess they wanted to bring back what people loved from the Connery Bonds, and which is why you bring Sean Connery back, right? And you were right. Like, he came back for the money. They offered him $1.25 million to do this role.
That's right. An awful lot of money for that time. It's still an awful lot of money now, but even more back then.
I mean,
years ago.
Someone's giving me $1.25 million now. That's life-changing.
100%.
Yeah, but for him at the time in I guess it was 1970 when they made him that offer, I'm sure that was huge for him.
Yeah, I think I heard that it was the biggest any movie star had been given at that time.
I 100% believe that. I mean, the budget of this movie was $7.2 million, so he got 1.25, and then but what's crazy is the box office on this, $116 million. So I guess people were really happy that Connery was back. So I guess it was worth the risk.
And do you have Her Majesty's box office balance, John?
I can get it to get you the exact one.
Just out of curiosity to see the difference.
So On Her Majesty's Secret Service had a budget of also $7 million, but its box office was only $82 million. So almost $40 million more than that movie, and it's only 2 years later. So I guess that's $40 more million, I guess, just for Connery coming in. That's the only reason I can think of that.
So it's at $1.25 million paid off.
I think so. I mean, I guess it's crazy that the budget is about the same. So I know they weren't paying George Lazenby anywhere close to that. So I'm guessing the money had to come from somewhere, in the sense that if that's included in the budget, I guess it's in the special effects or in the cameras, because I really do feel like it was just a step down in how the movie looked compared to On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
I thought, I know what you're saying about how it looked, but they did seem to go to more locations and stuff like that.
They did.
And it was more kind of say glamorous locations. They were in the States, and they travelled to Vegas, and even at the start where it opened, it was very sunny. And whereas like Majesty's, I think they were in London, a bit grey, and then they went to the snow.
That's true.
It wasn't exactly very bright there either.
No, it was definitely not I get what you're saying, much more gloomy, where this is definitely much more of like bright and sunny days. They ended up on towards the end, it ends on a boat and everything like that. And whereas in the last one, that was not the case. But I love them actually going to Vegas in this one. I thought that was pretty cool seeing what 1970s Vegas is, especially since they go to the Circus Casino, which is still there in Vegas, because I actually used to live in Vegas. So it's funny seeing how it looked like back then 50 years ago.
I'm sure it doesn't look like that now then.
No. I was just thinking of Casino when I was watching it, like how their Vegas was.
Yeah, the movie Casino. And it was run by a mob.
Yeah, now it's just like, I mean, it's funny though, because watching all the guys, they're like these Southern gentlemen kind of running it in Vegas, and they bring that up in Casino, and the guy, what's his name, in this one, Wyatt or something like that, or Willie Wyatt, and like his Southern accent, I was just thinking they all did kind of end up in this city in the desert. Overall, what did you think of this film? How did it feel for you watching it this time through?
Well, I think in the grand scheme of things, out of the first 7, isn't this the 7th movie? It's definitely bottom of the peg for me.
It's number 7? You put this dead last?
I put this dead last out of the first 7 Bond movies. I really feel as if they played it very safe, in a sense that going back to Connery and trying to bring people in who they've brought in before, just to make it too familiar.
Which I get that. Yeah, it is definitely like playing out the greatest hits. For sure in this, and even like they do spend a lot of time in Vegas, and that stuff is cool, but Connery at this point, he definitely looked older in this movie compared to the other ones.
Yeah, and I was actually going to say that about him as well, is that he's only 41 years of age when this movie came out, and to me he looks a lot older than that.
Yeah, those miles that guys, we talked about this on the last podcast, is that the miles on these men back then were just so different compared to nowadays. He does look like he's like almost like 52, 53, not like 41 years old, which I think he was, because he was only 31 in the first movie, so it's 10 years. He aged incredibly.
It's the same age as me now.
Yeah, and you look like you're 15 years younger than he is in this movie.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
What I'm really glad that you do, I'm glad you don't grow your hair out like one of those henchmen. Like, you know, like he's bald, but he wants to grow it out long on the sides, and he commits to it. Don't do that.
No, definitely not. I won't be trying that, John, anytime soon. And I believe he was wearing a wig in this movie.
Yeah, he was. He's got the piece on.
Yeah. He's got the piece on. And did you recognize anybody else in the movie there? Mr. Wynn and Mr. Kip?
Yeah, those guys.
You know who Mr. Wynn is?
You know, I was trying to figure that out, and it's weird because I thought it was I thought it was Ned Beatty at first, and then I looked and I can't remember the actor's name.
So his name's Bruce Glover.
Bruce Glover, yeah, I'm looking at that now.
And I've only ever seen him in this movie now. I've never seen him in anything else. But you know who is his son?
Tell me that his son is Crispin Glover.
It is Crispin Glover.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The future. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, Crispin Glover's kind of a weird dude, but his father, I liked him in this movie, actually. I thought those guys, they had a good little back and forth. I enjoyed them, actually. And I mean, they ended up playing a part in the very end of the movie. They finally got their comeuppance.
I think they've been criticized for the way that basically were handled as hitmen, because they were a bit on the camp side.
Oh, they were super campy. Super campy. The whole movie's very campy, which I wouldn't put this, like, I know you said this was dead last. I still kind of like this better than the first 2 that we've watched, because
Really?
I know, I kind of enjoy the camp tone. I do. That's why I think I'm going to like the Roger Moore ones when we get to it. I kind of enjoyed this movie. It's not as good as I still like Honor Majesty's Secret Service, Goldfinger, Wave, Thunderball. I like them all better than this, but this would probably still be better than the first 2, just because I kind of felt like everyone was having fun. Even Sean Connery, there were moments where I thought he was kind of like, seemed like he was phoning it in, but I did enjoy some parts of it. It's just, the plot overall it gets a very convoluted with the diamonds.
It does, yeah. I mean, I just found all that a bit hard to follow. Not in a way that it was complicated. It just became a bit boring, I thought. You know, and it's just about go to one location, go to the next location, you know, beat up these guys, you know what I mean, meet this person. And it was just hard to follow through that way, you know?
Yeah, we don't really find out Blofeld's master plan until the third act of what he's really what his goal is for these diamonds, like what he's really trying to do. And then when he does it, it's, I don't know, it just kind of feels forced in a way. And Blofeld in general in this movie, this was the weakest of the performance of Blofeld, in my opinion. I don't know how you felt about it.
Welcome to hell, Blofeld.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So that's Charles Gray played Blofeld. So we've had a different Blofeld in every single Bond movie to this point. And over the years, I used to think to myself, why didn't that stick to the same actor? But watching this again, I actually like the fact that maybe there's different Blofelds being played in each movie, because it kind of like ties into the fact that Bond's on a different mission and he meets a different Bond. Even Felix Leiter's in this film. And Felix Leiter isn't the same Felix Leiter from the previous movies either. So it's kind of like the only common denominator is Bond, really, and Sean Connery, and maybe, could you say, some of the good guys? You know, you've got Tudor, and you've got M and Moneypenny. Every time he comes up against like an opposing character or whatever, or an ally outside of the regulars, it's played by somebody different.
Yeah.
That's kind of didn't really bother me. I like the fact that Charles Gray maybe brought a different take to it.
I just felt like his I didn't mind that they changed it, because they had already set the precedent that they changed every Blofeld going forward. It's just he felt like his performance just wasn't as good as the previous two. Like Donald Sutherland obviously was not Donald Sutherland. What am I saying? But in the first, yeah, Donald Pleasance, and then in the last one, Telly Savalas. Yeah, he was great as well. This one just, he felt like just the weakest one, and also like now he has hair. He never had hair before. And then obviously he has all the clones, or well, I guess they're doing plastic surgery to make them look like him. Yeah,
it seemed to be that I don't know if did he have reconstructive surgery too?
I don't know if that was the whole point. Like, that's what they were trying to do, was like make it like maybe that's why he has hairs. He's trying to look different, which would explain it in a pretty good way, actually. But yeah, I mean, in the opening, in the cold open of the movie, where, you know, we think that we killed Blofeld, which would have been like a very much like an 80s slasher kind of thing, where we killed the main villain from the previous movie, but no, it kind of ends up coming back. But maybe that would explain it. He wanted to just make all these people that look like him, and obviously the voice box, so we can make people sound like him. I'm not too sure. Maybe that is what it was. Maybe that's why he changed his look. I don't know if they addressed that specifically, but that would kind of make sense. At least that would fill that plot hole in. Yeah, I kind of read it, and this was at the very beginning, that it shows you the montage of Bond beating up all these villains, we will call them, asking where's Blofeld. It cuts to Blofeld in his lair, and he says, we've got to do it now. And somebody says, we're not ready, or something along those lines, and he says, no, it's too late. So it's almost as if Blofeld knows that Bond is on him, so he has to move now. Now, maybe he's talking about his mission, and maybe part of his mission is that this kind of perception that he's dead, so we can carry. So Bond's not looking for him anymore, and he can carry it out because he knows Bond's looking for him. Because I think, isn't there a scene where he's with M, and M says to him, Blofeld's dead. Yeah, he says, like, that's it. Like, pretty much, like, you know, after that cold open, he's back. You know, he does his usual, like, you know, so let's set up what the movie's going to be about. And he said, like, Blofeld's dead. Like, you know, pretty much, like, you know, now it's time to move on. Since that's been his arc through these 3 or 4 previous movies, is that, you know, Blofeld's been his arch nemesis, and now it's time to get back down to doing other work. Which I do like how this movie, like, yeah, Bond is, like, they kind of play it out like, you know, he's just one of the double O's. He's not like the one. Like, you know, yes, we follow James Bond, but, you know, M has a job to do where he's got to deal with all the other ones, and, you know, same thing with Q and Moneypenny. But Bond's got that charm, and that's what Moneypenny falls for him. Yeah, I thought it was a bit distasteful for Moneypenny to ask him for an engagement ring. What happened with last week.
What can I bring you back from Holland?
A diamond in a ring.
That was cringeworthy. That was. And then, you know, the way he kind of like blows her off, and then she still smiles. I'm like, okay. Like, I was like, I mean, it was so cringeworthy. He's just keeping her on the hook. And speaking of actually, not cringe, but a wee bit more of the campness, was when Blofeld screams, when he goes for the gun. Oh. And he's Blofeld says these screams, you know, search him, and the mousetrap comes out. I mean, that's like something out of a Looney Tunes cartoon. Oh, yeah. I mean, other than Sean Connery in this movie, and a couple other people, like, I have loved the actor. I always get his name wrong. Desmond Llewellyn, who plays Q. Is that Llewellyn? Yeah. every time I love him. I think he's perfect as Q, and I assume that's why they kept him up until pretty much until he passed away as Q. I think he's just perfectly cast, and every time he's on screen I just love him. Like, I know he's sometimes they play him off, and like in this movie they kind of play him off as like kind of like a little bit of like a doofus, I guess, in a way, like when he's in the casino and stuff like that, how he's kind of like rigging the machine. But I just love his performances. I do. I think he's just a great... I really enjoy his work as Q. But as far as everybody else, they kind of seem like not the best line readings as far as the other actors and henchmen go.
Well, as far as I'm aware, I know we might be getting ahead of ourselves here. M is the same M right until he became ill and couldn't do the role anymore.
Yeah,
which is right up until the late 70s.
Oh, okay.
And it's the same with Moneypenny, and you're certain Moneypenny. It's the same Moneypenny right up until A Beauty a Kill. It's, as I said, they seem to keep that same core of Bond allies there, as in the British allies.
Yeah, and it's weird. The franchise has always kind of done that, where like the certain actors, until they want to leave, like in those roles, like in M, Q, and Moneypenny, they leave them in their roles until they want to leave. Like Judi Dench, once we get to the Pierce Brosnan ones, she's in GoldenEye, but then she's in all the way up until Skyfall as far as M goes. So it's strange, like how those actors, they won't swap out until they're ready, just like with James Bond. It's like, yeah, these certain core roles will keep with these certain actors until either they get too sick and they can't do it anymore, or they just choose to leave.
Which is, I know again, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but it's strange to me that they would reboot the series with Casino Royale, where it's supposed to be going back to Bond's roots, yet they keep Judi Dench's M, yet she was in the previous movies. A bit weird that, but I haven't seen that in the Brosnan one, so I don't know how I'll feel about that when I get to that stage and move from the last Brosnan into the first Craig movie.
I think Judi Dench, I mean, she's always good, but like I her performances in the Daniel Craig movies are a little bit more elevated than the Pierce Brosnan ones. I mean, when we get to the Pierce Brosnan ones, I feel like Pierce Brosnan movies are a little bit more in line with like the Roger Moore movies instead of less Connery-like or less even Daniel Craig-like. So she plays her role a little bit different, and it's also not as a big a role as she would. Obviously, in Skyfall, she's one of the main characters. So
that's right.
Judi Dench is phenomenal. It's just like she has a little bit like more of a role like how the M is in these ones. Like, we just bring in a big actress, maybe shoot with her a few days, and that's it. Yeah,
it's probably because of the tone of the movies. What they were going for with Daniel Craig is just why her performance, any changes in line with his and the overall tone of the movie. Maybe they didn't want to risk kind of recasting her part because she was popular in the Brosnan movies. I'm just guessing there. Maybe that's why I didn't want to go all out and change one of the more familiar roles, because I had a new Bond. I don't know, at that time there was a wee bit of a, not kick up, but a wee bit of a kind of on Bond. There was a wee bit of pushback on Craig, I think, when he first was announced.
That's true. I mean, yeah, the Bond actors, the way that they've always reacted, I feel like it's always kind of the same thing. A little bit of pushback, and then we kind of get used to it. I mean, I only really remember how people reacted when Daniel Craig got cast. That was a pretty big deal. But I don't know how people reacted after Connery left the second time and they cast they first cast Roger Moore. I don't know how the initial reaction was to that.
Which is funny what you were saying there about, the Brosnan ones, which again I haven't seen, and you said they're more in the vein of the Roger Moore movies. But do you not feel as if Diamonds Are Forever is very much in vein of what a Pierce Brosnan or a Roger Moore movie is?
100%.
The silliness and the campness. So after all these years, we sit and we go, whoa, the silly Roger Moore movies. Connery, you could argue, was the first to do it.
Oh, definitely. In this movie, a lot of his lines are just one-liners or just being just charming. Like, he doesn't really have the emotions that he had in previous Bond movies. Like, even with the love interests in this movie, like, he doesn't seem to care. I mean, one of the biggest laugh-out-loud moments I had in this movie was with, she's only in a couple scenes. What's her first name? I know her last name is O'Toole. But when they just walk in the room and they just grab her and throw her out the window. Like, before you see that she lands in a pool, I'm like, what the hell?
Plenty O'Toole.
Yeah.
And then Connery says about the pool, and the gangster says, I didn't know there was a pool down there.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even know there was a pool. Then he punches him in the face, Connery.
That's right. Did they all leave?
Yeah. I mean, actually, A lot of people fall in water in this movie, or in pools, or get thrown in pools, or in the ocean. I counted at least 4 scenes with somebody getting thrown, including Connery, because at the very end of the movie, he ends up in the... Because someone says to him...
It's funny you should say that about people landing in pools. It almost feels as well as if they were stuck in between ponds as well, to a certain extent. Because I thought that some of the deaths or some of the violent parts of the movie were genuinely violent. Like pulling the body from the canal near the start. I mean, seeing the dead body being pulled from the water, and then obviously later on, Plenty O'Toole, her body in the swimming pool. And then at the end, when they put I've got the news written down here, Mr. Kidd, when he actually goes in flames.
Yeah.
There's some violent parts of the movie, but at the same time, too, the overall kind of tone is more kind of playful, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, it's a wee bit camp. So I think that it's kind of goes under the radar, some of those kind of more kind of dark moments, because of how like the overall tone of the whole movie is.
Yeah, especially at the very end when he just blows up because he brought the bomb in the cake, and he blows up just as he's about to hit the water. But yeah, that is violent. That is true, and there is a lot of deaths in this movie. I mean, the fake Blofeld's the one that gets shot in the head, even though his acting about it is a little bit ridiculous, but I mean, that's pretty violent, especially for the time. These movies are still rated PG and everything like that, which, for all the stuff that's in these movies is surprising.
Yeah, and it's the fact they actually show it. It's not like you're buying and you see your head go back. I mean, they actually showed the hole in the head and stuff like that.
Yeah. They show a lot. I mean, you're right, though. It's just because I think they just combine it with the lighter tone of this movie. Like, everything is just done a little bit for, like you said, tongue-in-cheek, for laughs, just like kind of like maybe for like the gag. I mean, I'm telling you, that hair getting thrown out the window, I never laughed so hard at a Bond movie in a while. I forgot all about that just because they just walk in the room, grab her, and just immediately chuck her out the window.
Listen, I think there was a few laugh out loud moments for me, and I think this is about the third time I've watched this movie in the last maybe 5 years, because I watched it when I got the box set, and then it was on TV one day, one Sunday afternoon, and I watched it again, and then I watched it the other night. So now I'm kind of over the fact of some of the dreadful parts. I've kind of thought to myself, how did we go from Russia with Love to this? Really great, gritty spy thriller. To me, from Russia with Love, Bond didn't even happen in that movie. It could have just been a normal spy, and to me, it's a great spy thriller. And now we've got to this. So I'm kind of past that. And now that I'm watching it now, some of the funny moments I'm waiting on, I'm actually really laughing. Like you said about, is it Mr. Wynn who gets blew up with the bomb?
Yeah.
But the fact that he actually puts his arms in between his legs and pulls it up in between his groin, and he lets out this picture. Ooh!
Like, I know.
Throws him over the side of the boat. It's the same earlier in the movie when Mr. Wynn and Mr. Kidd killed the dentist.
Yeah.
How elaborate. It's in the desert. He lifts a scorpion and he puts it down the back of his jacket. But the dentist is like, oh!
I mean, no, those were hysterical. And then, I mean, I really enjoyed those two guys. I get that why they get insulted, but I had some good laughs at them. And then, actually, speaking of Bond in the desert, when he comes out of the pipe and they're just lifting up, and he's like, "Oh, thanks, guys." He just kind of basically steps out. I know I'm paraphrasing there, but he just comes up out of there.
Yeah, that's right. When he goes down, he opened the actual manhole cover and he climbs out. I can't remember what he says either, John, but that was the thing too with the movie. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many times in the movie you go to yourself, Blofeld really wanted to get rid of him. He could have killed him on numerous occasions.
Yeah,
it's all this kind of elaborate setup of putting him in that pipe and leaving him there for the workmen to come along and do all the work the next day, and not notice somebody was down inside that pipe.
That's one thing that, like, Austin Powers got perfect, was just how he always just puts him in these elaborate situations where he assumes he's going to die, but it's like, you've done this, like, what now, 4 or 5 times where you've just left Bond alone to die and, like, assume everything goes to plan, and it never does. You have a gun on him numerous times, and you've clearly showed you have no problem killing anyone else. You could have just easily killed Bond at any moment. You just choose not to for some odd reason.
Choose not to. I'm starting to think he's maybe like the Joker in Batman, where he doesn't want to kill Bond because he needs him.
That's a possibility. Like, we see that Bond is obsessed with getting him. Like, that's why M always brings it up to him. It's like that's like his, like, what do they call that? Like his white whale, like the one that just he can't get. And I feel like it's probably the same thing with Blofeld. It's like I have to kill him, but I have to kill him my way. It's like almost like a respect thing of how, because he does bring up all the time, like, there's that Bond mind that I like. Like he always kind of like respects how much smarter he is than everybody else.
Yeah, but maybe it could be. Maybe he feels like it's too easy to just shoot him.
Yeah.
I have to get him a very elaborate way to prove that you say I'm smarter than him.
Yeah, it's almost like a challenge for him, like, because think of all these like elaborate plans he's always got, like even in this one with the diamonds, like who thinks of that? It's like it's got to always be just too convoluted. It just can't be simple for him. It has to be something. Maybe he's got a chip on his shoulder. Maybe when he was a kid, his dad told him he was stupid or something, and now it's like he has to prove he's the smartest guy in the world. And Bond is always that one who's just slightly above him, who always outsmarts him. He's like, one day I'm gonna get that guy.
One day I'll get him.
Yeah, I'll get him my way. That's the only way.
Yeah. Here, what did you think of the fight in the elevator? Like I said, when I've watched this before, I've kind of like rolled my eyes and asked, God. But see, watched it this time, I actually really enjoyed the fight in the elevator, and it just kept going on and going on and going on.
It did keep going. I enjoyed the fight. Honestly, I think they've gotten better with the fighting, and this was definitely a big difference in the previous ones. A lot less jump cuts, and they were kind of like, actually seemed like they let the camera kind of sit still for a while, which I thought was pretty cool. Which they didn't really do too much in the previous few. I guess they kind of got, 1971, maybe tech's getting a little bit better. Because I know the movies start to look a lot better once we get to the Roger Moore ones, and they start to do a lot more stunt work.
Yeah, it just seemed to be better choreographed than the fight scenes in the previous movies. Say, maybe to disguise that with the jump cuts. As I said, it can be very jarring.
Yes.
The jump cuts, but this one here, you can actually make out what was happening.
Yes, exactly. You definitely could like make out the action, which I appreciated because it definitely makes it a little bit more entertaining than when you could just see every cut. And it looked like, they got Connery to do a lot of the work himself, which is good because, I guess they paid him all that money and he was probably willing to, but it definitely does feel like a weird in-between Bond movie, like they kind of threw it together because Lazenby left and maybe they weren't ready for what their future is going to hold and they only signed Connery on for one movie, so it's like, let's make this movie and then we'll figure out what we're going to do next.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure if maybe they went for Moore after this to do the one, not after this one, after Her Majesty's. I'm not sure if they went for Moore and they couldn't get him. You know what I mean? So it was like, well, in the meantime, as you say, we'll just get Sean Connery to do this one here, and then we'll figure it out after that. I'm sure Connery was like, this is it, and that back after this. This is the last one.
Oh, we hoped.
For it, and I think he was just enjoying himself.
Yeah, it did seem like he was having a good time. Like, it definitely, like, there were moments where it kind of seemed like he wasn't, like, maybe he was phoning in it, but for the most part, it seemed like he was enjoying himself. It seemed like he was definitely in on everything and willing to do the work, which I definitely appreciated, because it definitely does kind of feel like a lame duck Bond movie in the sense it's between Lazenby and Moore, and, he kind of already had done his bow out. Even in this, though, they don't really give him, like, a conclusion like they would nowadays. Like in No Time to Die, the way they gave Daniel Craig his send-off felt like a real send-off. Like here it's like, it's just the end of another chapter to Bond.
Yeah, but it goes back to what we were saying about they're just following the same old formula, and because the last movie had that kind of more of a bleak ending, they just kind of left it open to, you know what I mean, he's won again, he defeated Blofeld, he's got the girl, you know what I mean? And then the music kicks in. And again, John, maybe they consider bringing them back again. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on exactly what happens. I mean, I guess when we get to the next one, maybe I'll be able to do some more research. But I'm not too sure what the plan was. Just the fact that he got that much money makes me think like it was kind of like a desperation move. Like they had Lazenby all lined up because they originally offered him a 5-film deal, and then he backed out like right before the premiere. So, and these movies feel like they're quick turnarounds, like 1-2 years, let's get this out. It's not like nowadays, like, we haven't had a Bond movie in 3 years, and before that, it was like, now you get them like every 4 or 5 years. Back then, it was like every year or every other year.
Yeah, back then, it did seem to be the return of it. a lot quicker. Different times now, I don't know. I just feel as if now the actors and directors, it takes an awful lot to make a big blockbuster like that now, that they want to take a break. And they don't want to dive back into maybe a Bond, another Bond movie. They want to take their time.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. It's just back then I feel like the Broccoli's kind of ran it more like a business. Like these budgets, like nowadays you just wouldn't get that where a movie has I mean that's not a small budget for the time of $7 million, but if a movie's making like $82 million, the next movie usually would get like at least double its budget because it did such a good job profit wise, but they still like seem like they were like pinching pennies the whole way, you know?
Well, this seems to be an anomaly with, as we said last week about sequels. I've never really looked into Bond sequels and their budgets and whatever, and how that operated, but I do know that when the sequels kicked in the late 70s, early 80s, that the thought was that the sequels budget was usually slashed to half.
It's so strange how they did that back then. Like even when I was looking at the Superman budget, it's just not like how they do it now. It's the business model is completely different. They really didn't give sequels like crazy money like they do nowadays. Fast X had a budget of $340 million, and that's just based on the fact that they expect them to make that back. Back then it was like, we want to have as big of a profit margin as possible.
And I think the reason why back then, I'm talking like early 80s, maybe late 70s, when the sequels really started coming out, the reason why the budgets were half was because that the sequels usually only made about 50% of the originals. Usually. So when you look at it like that, that's right about half the budget.
That makes sense. I guess people I guess weren't invested in franchises back then like they are now, because now that's all that really makes money is IP and franchise. Back then people were still going to see original films in theaters, and really the big money makers were the movies that would do good at the Oscars. Like this is 1971, the next year was The Godfather, and The Godfather was the highest grossing film of 1972.
Yeah, which is why I say there, I think Bond is a bit of an anomaly in that sense that people kept going back to watch Bond. They kept going back. And I suppose if you're investing $7 million into a movie, of course that's a risk. But even if you're making $80 million, I mean, that's some profit. Even if and this is even before mass advertising, I think, as well. Mass advertising didn't come in until the mid-70s. So you hear a movie now, say for example, it costs $350 million to make. We're spending the same amount on marketing. Back then, they were probably only spending half of the budget on marketing, but that didn't come even until the mid-70s. So I don't know how much they're spending on the marketing even before the mid-70s. But you're still got a hell of a profit margin there. If you're spending $7 million on a movie and making back $80 million or $100 million one day.
That's true. That is definitely. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I didn't look into what the marketing is. Nowadays, I think the rule of thumb is a movie has to double their production budget to start making a profit. So that's why everyone's been talking about Fast X needs to make like a worldwide budget of like almost $800 million just to start getting money based on that, So yeah, it just feels like nowadays certain things, just like the way that they are with movies, it's just very different. We get IPs and like horror movies, because horror movies always turn a profit because they just made on the cheap. But that's really it. We don't get like mid-level or mid-budget movies anymore in theaters, at least, which is a shame.
I just know from obviously with Jaws being the first summer blockbuster, that was the first real movie to kind of invest in marketing campaign and advertising. Not saying they didn't advertise movies before then, of course they did, but the mass kind of advertising worldwide, television spots, made up on billboards, things like that. Jaws was the first movie to do that, and I think they spent a couple of million on it. So if you look at Jaws, I think Jaws' budget was something between 7, 8 to 11 million. Nobody exactly knows. There's a run over budget. So if they spent $2 million on a budget of say $8 million, there's even just a quarter, right? And I actually remember, and I'm just going to memory here, I remember when Jurassic Park actually came out in the early 90s. I think that budget was around $60 million. And I remember at that time they were reporting that the actual advertising was cost the same as the amount of it took to make the movie.
Really?
And that was 30 years ago. Yeah, so $60 million to make Jurassic Park, and then $60 million to advertise it.
Oh wow! So yeah, so that I'm
So
sure.
that just shows you within that space of time, John, 20 years, you know, they see these blockbusters, the studios see the advertising just as important as the actual movie, making of the movie itself. They get a profit back. And that's where we are today.
I mean, advertising, I really do feel like is a huge thing. And you could just see when a movie doesn't advertise well that it misses at the box office. People need to be aware that these things are coming out because, or else they're just going to fail, especially nowadays. Like, movies really have to make their money on their opening weekend. We don't see legs anymore. Movies aren't in theaters for, you know, they used to be in theaters like for like a year. I think I remember reading like Home Alone was still like near the top of the box office by the summer of 1991, which is crazy, or 92.
It used to be like, if you look at the old blockbusters that came out in the late 70s and early 80s and things like that, the movies that usually done the best were the movies that had legs, right?
Yeah.
And that all kind of changed towards the end of the 80s, where basically it was make as much money as you can in the first weekend, and and after that, if you can get your money back, I think after that's profit. And most movies then used to drop off. You know, a lot of movies, it's very rare for a movie to have legs. Very rare for a movie to stay like number one or stay in the top movies for weeks on weeks on weeks, or even just a whole summer now. But obviously there's a lot more, well, say there's a lot more competition. If you look at like a year like 1989, which had the likes of Batman and Ghostbusters 2 and Indiana Jones, and I'm not sure, but Lethal Weapon 2 came out that year, didn't it? And
yep.
All these big movies come out around the summertime. So I don't know if there's more competition now, but it just seems to be that these all says build a load of hype around it, get bums and seats, as many as possible the first couple of weekends, and then anything after that's profit. But I think also what changed and maybe keeping it out of the cinemas as well is home video, where there was movies that actually you would have to wait like maybe a year for them to come out in VHS. And what they were doing was they were fast tracking that. They were making these VHSs available towards the end of the year, you know, and that was the next big thing. You build up that hype, like so the Batman VHS, you know, coming out I think in November, I think in May. It was only in the cinemas in June.
Yeah, no, that was a big deal. I mean, I read about that. It was like a really they wanted it out for the holidays for 1989 because that was the biggest movie of the summer of '89. And I mean, I don't remember. Obviously, I wasn't alive yet, but I don't remember what the cost like of a VHS was. But I mean, I remember people. I was listening to a podcast recently saying that VHSs were really expensive, like when they first came around in the '80s until like the mid '90s. Because when I started buying VHSs, the price point US dollars was like $20, which is kind of like, you know, we've increased now in new release 4Ks and Blu-rays, but it's still around the $20 range. But I heard like Disney stuff was like $60 US back in the day.
Yeah, I've heard that obviously across in the States and stuff. I've heard of VHSs costing like $80, $100 when they first came out.
That's crazy.
I have no memory of that myself. I do know that VHS over here, the first VHS I ever owned, original VHS, it was bought for me as a birthday present, was Batman, and that was around 1990. But I guess that was probably at most £20, you know, British pounds, but that's at the most.
Yeah, I feel like probably just like anything in the 80s and stuff, and, you know, new technology, as we go on a little bit, becomes more accessible, then the price starts to drop. But, you know, CDs were around also, and I remember DVDs when we started to get first run DVDs were still, VHS was still the main thing, but then once DVDs kind of started to grow, then the price of VHSs dropped, and even DVDs once by like the early 2000s were down like that $20 mark too.
So that's what I'm saying, so I think that's the anticipation then of the actual home media, and that's probably another reason why a lot of people went back and watched movies maybe more in the 70s and watched them again and again, because they didn't know when they were going to see them again. That's
true. That is the big deal. I never really, like, I've thought about it, but I've asked my dad about stuff like that, and he's like, we had 4 channels, like, and most of them had sports or the news on, and you have one show, and every once in a while they'd show a movie, but if you missed it in theaters, it was gone. You know, that was it. You weren't going to see it unless they re-released it in theaters. There was no home video market at all. We definitely are spoiled nowadays in the sense that, and I guess that's probably just to tie it back into Bond, why you were probably able to get away with swapping out actors and stuff like that. It was probably like going to see like how the Indiana Jones movies are, as like a serial kind of thing, like going to see the next episode in Bond's, you know, his career. Yeah, which is why I'd say, you know, it's testament to just how popular the Bond character was back in the, you know, 60s and 70s, that people wanted more.
even if they were following the same tropes, people didn't mind. If the last one was 69, this one was 70, 71, 71, so you have 2 years of wait there. If it wasn't on the television, and maybe you watched on my Secret Service and you liked it, or maybe you watched Goldfinger, and what was that, 1964 or whatever it was?
Yeah.
You enjoyed that. And you maybe didn't watch a couple of ones in between, and you're like, well, we'll go watch this new Bond movie. Whereas, like, if you had the older Bonds at your fingertips, you would think to yourself, I'll wait for it to come on TV, or I'll wait for it to come out in VHS. But I think maybe that's why maybe a lot more people went for the movies back then, and why these movies, when you look at budget compared to profit, it's such a big margin there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like movies just back then just made so much more money than they do nowadays. Like, yeah, there's some movies, like last year we had Top Gun Maverick, and that was like a big deal. But nowadays, if you don't make that money in that first weekend, it's usually like a 60% drop-off weekend to weekend, and then if it bombed, it's gone, and then it's on streaming. And now we don't even have, it used to be a 90 days where it had to be between physical or home release, I guess streaming release nowadays, and now they cut it in half to 45 days. And back, like you said, with Batman, or I remember reading about E.T. also, which was a big deal. Like, that was a 1 year, I believe, until it came to VHS, and it's crazy. Like, that was it. Like, nowadays, you can stream a movie, if it didn't do well in theaters, 45 days later. That's it.
I actually heard that Spielberg didn't want to release E.T. on VHS.
Really?
And that's why it took so long. They had to actually convince him
Wow.
to release it. That's how much power he had. He wanted it to be a cinema experience, and that's it.
Wow, yeah, I guess, I mean, yeah, in the early 80s, I guess that was probably the time when home release, because, we had the VHS versus Betamax thing, and then probably by mid-80s, Betamax was gone, and that was, now we're just on to VHS, and that's when the home media market took off, and now it's kind of like in the decline, I guess, which is unfortunate, but we had the heights then where people had VHS collections and that they were watching all the movies that they wanted to at home. I mean, that's how I became a film fan in general, was when watching movies at home.
Yeah, well, the same here. I mean, myself, watching movies on television and being able to record them off the television even before I knew you could buy an original. But I mean, same as yourselves there, we had VHS rental stores. And I always remember that the movies were in there before you could actually buy them. So there was a period between then that you could go and rent them there before you could even buy them. So it wasn't like the rental stores got them the same time that you could buy them. Could be wrong there, but I'm near certain that's the way it was.
Yeah.
The period between that.
Yeah, I remember those days. I mean, I remember you could rent them, and then usually you couldn't buy them until a couple weeks later, and then towards the end of VHSs, it was just like, now you could, I remember they started doing, I don't know if you guys had, we had Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, and stuff like that, but once we got kind of towards the end of the rental era, it was, guaranteed to have it in stock to buy or rent, and then they just kind of fell apart.
Yeah, that's right. You could buy them as well, yeah.
So that was kind of the end of that market. It's an ever-changing thing with the movie business, because, I mean, this is 52 years ago now, and it's a totally different world from what it was. Yeah,
it definitely was a totally different world, but I think me and you've talked about this briefly before, is that to me, Bond back then is what your Marvel is now. You know what I mean? And then when we move into the 70s, you get the big blockbusters, you get the Spielberg blockbusters, and you get Star Wars, and I feel as if the Spielberg blockbusters and the Star Wars movies, even though there was only 3 of them back then, they kind of took over the mantle of Bond, what the Bond franchise, what Bond was.
Yeah, pretty much. They pretty much took over this is our big release of the year, big studio release, and then you got to come back in a couple of years to see the next chapter. And yeah, Star Wars was the one that really changed the film industry. I don't know if it's for the better, but it really definitely changed not just sci-fi, but movie watching in general just switched after that in 1977. And even obviously we talked in the comments about Moonraker and how that was trying to capitalize on the Star Wars thing. Everyone was trying to. I think The Last Starfighter is another one that's like a Star Wars kind of knockoff, and everybody had to have their piece of that pie. And there were some Bond knockoffs. You can argue that there was movies like The Italian Job is kind of playing around with some aspects of Bond.
Yeah, well, I mean, Alfred Hitchcock himself, who I think he was offered to direct Dr. No, but he said no. Then he made his own kind of James Bond ripoff, North by Northwest, which is an excellent movie, by the way.
I love North by Northwest. It's one of Hitchcock's best, 100%.
It is. But what you'll actually notice then, it's really funny, once we're going to the 70s, Bond movies that were being released, as we mentioned about Moonraker, are mirroring the popularity of certain genres in the 70s.
Yeah,
so you'll see that as you go along in the 70s.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into the Roger Moore ones.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that there were some good one-liners in it, John.
Great one-liners.
In the Moore era, like, for example, he says to the Bond girl, what was her main name? The main Bond girl, what's her name again?
The actress's name is... Let me get her correct name, because... Jill St. John as Tiffany Case. I was like...
Tiffany Case.
Yeah, I did...
He says there about the colour of her hair, providing the collars and cuffs match.
Yeah, that was funny. Actually, I wanted to bring up about her because they kept bringing up her ass in the one thing when he put the cassette in her bikini bottom, and he said something about her. She's like, really nice cheeks. I think actually Blofeld said that. What a shame.
Blofeld, that is one of my best favorite lines. I wrote it down here. He says, "Nice cheeks too. If only they were brains."
Yep. And she almost.
Also, of course. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that leads actually when she actually tries to do something good for Bond and switch out the cassettes, and she ends up putting in the right one again. She's like, "What did he say to her?" He's like, he called her an idiot, I think, or a moron.
I think he called her a twit.
Yeah, you dumb twit. Yeah, that's what he said.
He said, you put the right one back in again. You twit, or you dumb twit. That's right. But there was also an obligatory Sean Connery slap the Bond girl as well.
Of course, he had to get one in this movie.
You had to have that in there. And I also liked when he wore the fake, what do you call them, fingerprints.
Yes.
He phones Q and says, "That was great, ingenious Q." And Q tells him the guy who's pretending to be has escaped and killed the guard. And it goes back to the phone, and he's like, Q's like, "Bond, you there?" And Bond's already left.
Yeah.
So the guy who's pretending to be goes to her apartment, remember?
Yeah.
And he's standing outside with the hands around his back.
Yep.
As if pretending that he's kissing someone. It's so dreadful.
It is. There was a lot of that in this movie, but it was hysterical. There was a lot of funny moments like that, little moments, a lot of definite great one-liners, though. And a lot of Connery's dialogue in this movie definitely was leaning into the one-liners. Not as much emotion as he had in previous Bond performances.
It was very much tongue-in-cheek. A lot of his one-liners and stuff. I mean, he used to say the one-liners in the previous Bonds. It's been a while since I've watched the Connery ones, to be honest with you, the earlier ones. But he would have these cool one-liners, and they were tongue-in-cheek. But in this, he was saying it maybe with a wee smirk on his face. You know, it was a wee bit more self-aware, I feel, in this one. And see when he went to the moon buggy as well. Scene, that's basically where the movie starts to lose me. You know, this is where it's really moving into real farcical territory.
I mean, that scene is funny, watching a regular car chase that thing. It makes no sense. I mean, this movie also has a mini submarine that ends up taking out an entire oil tanker. So you got to buy into that.
Yeah, and the oil tanker for me is a poor substitute for the volcano.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering, though, when they had the moon, when they were, like, filming that moon scene, I wonder if that was kind of like a play on, I mean, I don't know if they were that self-aware back in the 70s, but, those rumors that Stanley Kubrick shot the moon landing on just the soundstage. And I was like, I could see it when they got, in black and white like this.
Yeah, exactly. I'm wondering where they're having a wee dig at it.
Yeah, I was just wondering if, those rumors were popping up back then or not, or if that's just something that, conspiracy theory that popped up all those years later. But I was like, I could see them kind of making a little slight backdoor jab at, Kubrick here, but I don't know if that's what they were thinking or if that's just me looking at it through 2023 eyes. I always thought that was funny, but yeah, that moon buggy thing was ridiculous.
And then not only did Blofeld start getting new faces, at one stage he actually dresses up as a woman to escape.
Oh yeah, he got out, and then he said when she got in the car, he's like, "I was dreading making this long ride alone," or something like that.
That's just the ridiculousness of this film, to be honest. But I have to say, I did enjoy the score. And I do like the song as well.
Yeah, the Diamonds Are Forever theme is actually one of the ones that I always think of too, because the way it's performed is almost very similar to how the Skyfall theme is kind of sung, like almost like a similar tone it kind of extracts.
Yeah, I did watch a documentary on the Bond songs a couple of months ago, through every single Bond song and how they were created and things like that, right up until Skyfall. I think I'm talking about Skyfall. They wanted Shirley Bassey back, obviously, because of how popular Goldfinger was and wanted something in the same vein as that. But when Barry wrote it, and I'm not sure if she signed the demo, but we probably heard it, Cubby Broccoli didn't like it at all. He stormed out, he walked out.
Really?
He didn't like the lyrics. And they basically told Bassey that you've got to sing it. It's not about diamonds. It's about men's private parts.
I mean, I guess that makes sense.
So when you listen to it and what she's singing about, that's what she's singing about. It's not actually diamonds.
Well, now I'm gonna have to
treat the men's private parts like they're diamonds.
I expect mine to be treated that way at all times, so that makes sense.
Well, there's a reason why they call them the family jewels, isn't there?
I never put two and two together. That does make sense. I mean, I guess that without them, you ain't gonna have a family, because that's impossible, so it definitely makes sense. Diamonds Are Forever. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And James Bond, that's what he's known for, is, swooping some ladies off their feet and showing them a good time. Yeah. I mean, Felix Leiter makes a lot of jokes to that sense in this movie. Basically just knows what debonair Bond is, he's like, Felix Leiter, it's like there you have that friendship. I always like that they, obviously the actors change, but I always like their little friendship between a CIA agent and an MI6 agent.
Yeah. And it's very good. It's one of those things where I wish that Felix was in more of the movies, had more to do. Not so much this one, but in the other movies, it's kind of like, I like him being there, as you say, as an ally. And it's funny, when they were talking about making universes out of James Bond and stuff like that, I'm very surprised they haven't actually done a spun-off of Felix Leiter. We can just call it Leiter.
It's perfect. And now, I mean, I didn't know this, but Amazon bought MGM. So Amazon now owns the rights to all the MGM properties, including Bond. But technically, the Broccoli family still owns and makes all the decisions to Bond. So that's why we haven't gotten any spin-off shows on Amazon yet, because the Broccoli family is really protective of what they do with the Bond franchise. And because there are so many routes they can go, and I would love a Felix Leiter like a 10-episode miniseries. I think that would be great.
Yeah. I just don't understand this kind of pushing of trying to change Bond. Now, I understand he's got to evolve for the times to a certain extent. I mean, I wouldn't expect, we talked about Sean Connery slapping the Bond villains, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect to see that now. I can understand why I'd want to move away from that do stuff like that. That's understandable.
Yeah.
But I don't understand this changing the essence of what Bond is or 007 is. When they could have a show about 008 or 002 or Felix Leiter, or a show about Q, or what about a prequel about M?
Yeah, we don't need to you don't have to mess around with the James Bond character. That character was written by a guy who's not even alive anymore, and you have so many other options to go. We know that 007 is just another 00. If you want to explore other 007s and have maybe James Bond pop up in those shows or movies or whatever you want to do, you have the option. Just you don't have to mess around with James Bond.
And the best about it is that say you did make a show and Bond pops up in it for an episode, or maybe just a cameo. It wouldn't even have to be. It could be any actor.
Yeah, exactly. You could just play around with that. And I remember people saying also it'd be cool to get some of the old Bond actors in there just to play different roles and stuff like that. I found out this week that Sean Connery was considered for the role in Skyfall as I think Albert Finney ended up playing the actual role at the end of the movie, but people felt like that would have distracted the viewer, because they'd be like, oh, that's Sean Connery. But I feel like if you do little things like that, like a little wink at the camera, I think more fans would appreciate it. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, well, let's see in this era now, John, we talked earlier briefly about franchises and multiverses and things like that. Bond has such great potential there. For me, I really think it does, and I think there's a lot of fans will be quite happy with that, because I think what happens is when you start messing about with the main character, it divides the fan base.
Yes, exactly. And
if you take another character who the fan base like and do something with it, you're all going to be on board, because the potential's limitless. You can do anything with them.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with so many other different characters and other characters in these franchises that people have an attachment to, but you just don't. I don't think that. I think that's almost sacrilege to play around too much with James Bond. He is what he is. He's been written this way forever, and people still come out for James Bond movies. There's no reason to play around and make too many drastic changes to his character. You know, you do what Daniel Craig did, like, you know, have like a darker version, a more real life version of Bond. But you still have to hit the tropes, I feel like, for James Bond, just because of the long-running fans of him.
Yeah, my attitude is that there's part of me that thinks that he's got those tropes there. He's got those personality traits. He's not there as a model citizen. He's not there as a stand-up guy to look at. You know what I mean? And kind of like aspire to. You know, he's got his flaws. To me, is that he's the one constant. Right, so what I mean is, I'm not saying that. I'm sure there's outdated views in the 60s and 70s who can change for today. That's fine, but that doesn't mean that he can't be a chauvinist man. Again, doesn't mean you have to like it. People are their characters, and people have flaws, and you can play off that. But what can change then is everything around him. Is the world we live in now. The world we live in now, as you said earlier, John, isn't the same world we lived in. People lived in the 60s and 70s. So, as I say, the character can generally stay the same, that he's this kind of likes a drink, likes to smoke, maybe a bit of a womanizer, a bit of a chauvinist, but the world around him has changed as well.
Exactly.
And I think, as I say, I haven't seen the Pierce Brosnan ones, but I know that Judi Dench does call him one stage your Assassin's Dinosaur 007.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And that was only back in the 90s.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what the character was. The 90s was a big shift in how our world perspective was, and it starts when we get to the Pierce Brosnan ones. I'm very curious to see what you think of them, because he starts out so good in GoldenEye, and then it just drastically declines almost into super camp territory. That it's almost like they did a Batman and Robin, the Batman Begins on that, where it's like we have to reboot it and it has to be more in the real world, because that world that he lives in is just so outdated.
Too fantastical as well, which is kind of strange when I'm thinking about it now. It's kind of like Damon's here as well. Like, Live and Let Die, as we'll see, could potentially be either one or two on the most grounded Moore movies on the spectrum. Maybe one or number two, the most grounded out of the ones that he done, which is funny then, because Dennis goes down that road of being very kind of, you know, campy and flamboyant and just ridiculous.
I have the image of the couch exploding in my head still that I'll never forget. That blow up couch. I don't know which more movie.
At the end of Live and Let Die?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's been a while. I think it's a few years since I watched Live and Let Die, but if I can remember, it's probably one of my favourite Moore Bonds, if not my favourite Moore Bond, is Live and Let Die.
Yeah, that's kind of where that's my biggest blank spot on Bond is Moore's, because I haven't seen those at the very minimum 13, 14 years, and that might even be shooting low. So I'm going into those not blind, but, you know, pretty blind.
Yeah, well, just know your expectations, and then you may enjoy it more.
Yeah, I mean, I think I will. Like I said, I kind of enjoyed this one. It seems like a little bit more than you, so I think that it's definitely, I think I might get more enjoyment out of him, but we'll have to see.
I actually think that Diamonds Are Forever is the type of movie that could be on TV on a Sunday afternoon. If there was nothing else on, you could switch your brain off and watch it, and you could enjoy it. I also think to a certain extent it's very kind of kid-friendly that they could sit and watch. But for a Bond movie, if you were to ask me, look, you know, it wouldn't be the first Bond movie I go to. Do you know what I mean? There's plenty of other Bond movies I would go to before that. It's pretty low down on my list of Bond movies. And it's the same as I said last week. It's like, if you're going to show a Bond movie to someone, I don't think you're going to show them Diamonds Are Forever. If somebody had never seen a Bond movie before, you're not going to say, what's Diamonds Are Forever? Because it may put them off Bond for life.
No, you pull out, I feel like you either pull out like Goldfinger. I think if you're going to pick a Sean Connery movie, you pull out either Goldfinger. I know you're a big From Russia with Love guy. You know, I think those are the two you pull out from the Connery era to show somebody.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's show. We'll be doing these again. David's going to review all of these with me, which is awesome because I really appreciate him being here with me. And if you guys like this podcast, make sure you give it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. You know, tell all your friends. If you like the video, make sure you like it, share, and subscribe. Also tell all your friends, and we will be seeing you next time.